Hi, my name is Ryan. So I wanted to run a story on corruption, court corruption, a criminal cover-up. This has been going on in Warren County, Ohio for approximately 13 years right now. Basically, back in 2007, I was charged with two crimes, rape and kidnapping. And I hired a local attorney and we went through the normal course of litigation. You go to court and you file your discovery with the prosecutor. And at the time of my discovery, my attorney was making multiple discovery requests for the state to hand over exculpatory evidence, evidence that was required under Criminal Rule 16 to be handed over. There was a lot going on in the background that me and my attorney was never aware of. Basically, this girl that falsely accused me, she had went to a children's services and she was interviewed there. She went to a separate hospital. My attorney and me was never aware of this. The prosecutor never told us of this. There was dispatch tapes that was never handed over to me. I did get the 911 call. I did get some evidence. I got a rape kit, and that, and I was never given the arresting officer's narrative. So basically, they had several pretrial conferences. My attorney went to court, asked the prosecutor, "Have you handed over everything to my client?" It did not look good for me. So again, my attorney went back and had a conference with the prosecutor, make sure everything was firm. He handed over everything. And they worked out a plea deal for me. And the plea deal was, 5 years in prison or 1 year in prison. And then you have to register on a sex offender registry for, 10 years or so. And, I was scared at the time. I've never went to prison or anything like that. I maintained my innocence to my attorney. I told him I did not want to take this plea deal. I wanted to take it to trial. The attorney was basically putting stress on me. He was telling me who was going to be at trial, who was going to testify. And he said the jury would most likely return a verdict of guilty on maybe a lesser included offense of rape. But anyways, I said, there's no way that you can determine that, And again, he told me that you will be found guilty. So, I think your best bet, just take this plea deal. You're going to be sentenced to a year in prison. You're going to have to register for 12, 15 years. I took the plea deal. I went into court. I pled. I maintained that I was under duress at the time. So after that, they sentenced me to a year in prison, 10 years on a sex offender registry, 5 years PRC, which is post-release control. And yeah, when you go to prison, there's a lot of angry people in prison. So yeah, a lot of people don't like people accused of any type of sex offense. So it was very scary. And, at first it was really scary. So, while I was in prison, I wrote a motion to the court. I said I was innocent of all these charges. I think there should be additional evidence in this case. I asked the prosecutor, is there any evidence that may exist? They wrote a motion to the court denying my post-release control, saying he's not presented any evidence that I've withheld anything against this guy. The judge agreed with the prosecutor and denied my motion for post-release control. So I had nothing to raise. I had no issues to raise on appeal. I had no issues to raise in any type of court, federal court, state court. So I did my sentence. And then after I got done with my sentence in 2012, 2013, I made what's called a public records request. And I found out that there was a children's services interview. In fact, there was one. And these police reports did not align with what I was handed over discovery. I made contact with a former Mason Police Department officer. I forget his name, but anyways, He's a detective down in Mason, and he raised a lot of red flags to me. He said, Ryan, there is something wrong here. I gave them everything they handed over to Discovery. This guy, which was a former sergeant there, he said something is missing here. So, I asked for a hearing on the matter. I was denied a hearing. And then I filed my writ of habeas corpus at that point in time. I was still under parole, which just means you're still in custody. I filed my federal habeas in the Southern District of Ohio, Western Division at Cincinnati. It was assigned over to Magistrate Merz. After this other judge named Spiegel, he died. He died shortly after. He was a really fair federal judge. So he died. It was assigned over to Magistrate Michael Merz. And from 2013 all the way to 2023, right here, I have had a problem with this guy. So basically, this has to deal with court corruption. So when I filed it, the magistrate judge said, you're too late. This is all your fault for filing this too late. They put everything on me. They took all the blame and said that I was at fault for everything. Since you filed it too late, you have no standing in this court. You're time barred. It is dismissed. So I appealed it to the Sixth Circuit, and I explained, this is not my fault. This is the prosecutor's fault. He was supposed to hand this stuff over and pretrial discovery. All this evidence. No. It's all your fault. So they said, this is all your fault. You could have filed it. And I explained that even if I filed it, you would have had no standing in court, because you have to have a federal issue to raise, or you have no standing in court. So the Sixth Circuit, who overheard my appeal, did not even read that. They don't care. It's all your fault. You could have filed it. Yes, I could have filed it. So I explained I could have filed it, but it was not my fault. It was the prosecutor. Prosecutor had an affirmative duty to hand over evidence favorable to me at the time of my plea, because I specifically asked for it in discovery. And some of this was actually mandated by what's called the criminal rule of 16, subsection D and E, especially in cases of sexual assault, to be handed over to me. So they just ignored it and they dismissed it. So that was it with there. So fast forward another 10 years, and I made another public records request to Mason Police Department, and I asked him for this officer who charged me with rape. He was the only officer that charged. His name is Sergeant Downey. So Sergeant Officer Michael Downey, he was a former Mason Police Department officer. He was a sergeant. In my case, he should have had what's called a supervisor supplement. And he was the first officer that was at my apartment. He interviewed me, he interviewed the girl, and he went back to the department and draw up a report. He's supposed to. And he directed the other officers to actually charge me with this crime. So I made a public records request. It was denied. They said it doesn't exist. I went back. I said, yes, it does exist. He did charge me. He was the charging officer. There must be a report by him. And I told him that I made contact with a Mason Police Department officer down here in Mason. He used to work there for 30 years. He said it does exist. So I went back and they denied it. He said, no, it doesn't exist. You're not going to get access to our computer system to actually find that report, by the way. So they told me to get out of the department, and they told me that they destroyed the officer dispatch tapes, which isn't true, because there's a separate matter on that, and I'll explain that later. But anyways, I have proof that the Ohio Attorney General, who represents the state of Ohio in federal habeas, that they were a part of this criminal investigation. So they were actually copied the results of the rape kit. And other attorneys through that office would have been imputed the fact of everything that the Mason Police Department submitted over to the prosecutor's office. They were a part of the investigation. So I put all these records, I put a sworn affidavit into federal court. I put a motion for leave requesting that I enter the rape kit into evidence to show that the Ohio Attorney General was involved in the criminal investigation. So they knew what the prosecutor hid in this, in my case, in my federal habeas, and that the Ohio Attorney General misled the federal habeas court on this matter. And I cited all the evidence that the prosecutor hid and was known to Maura Jate. Maura Jate is representing the Ohio Attorney General's office, defending the state of Ohio in federal habeas. So I get back a order. This case is 10 years later. It has been on and off for 10 years. Filed on 9/1/23. It's a report and recommendations. So when I read this, the magistrate is acting as a defendant in this matter. He is telling me that, one, collateral estoppel applies. Okay. Number two, he's saying that res judicata applies. And these are two affirmative defenses that is typically filed under a motion to dismiss under 12b-6 by a defendant in a matter. So it's basically filed by a defendant in a lawsuit to preclude litigation because you've already filed another lawsuit. So I've never filed another lawsuit. So he's arguing on behalf of the Ohio Attorney General in this matter. Okay, so he's trying to dismiss my motion for relief. I asked for a hearing on the matter. He denied it. Okay? He will not look into the matter. He will not look into any of this evidence suppression. So I'll show you where he denied it. Motion for relief from judgment should be denied. He denied it. I asked to supplement the record to file under seal. Decision order denying motion for leave to file under seal. Okay. So I cite the fact that this is a crime. This is tampering with evidence because a prosecutor or the police cannot tamper with a public record. And I don't have this with me right now, but I did file a police report with the Lebanon Police Department. When I filed it there, they didn't do anything. They didn't look into it. They denied it, and it was dismissed. I filed a separate matter in the municipal court, which has jurisdiction over the Mason Police. It was assigned over an attorney by the name of Mark Urick. He read the complaint. He stipulated he's not going to do any investigation. He dismissed it. And that's it with that. So they won't look into it. And so I informed the magistrate that, this is a crime. This is a crime now. I went down to the FBI office down in Cincinnati. I filed a report with them. They destroyed it. They didn't do anything. They didn't look into it. And I kind of want to give a little history on this because in the United States, you have a due process right. When you're charged with a crime and you're asking through discovery that the prosecutor hand over evidence, you have a due process right to have evidence in front of you to make a informed decision whether to plead out or even if I took it to trial. I mean, you have a due process right. You have a right to have evidence before you. Okay? So when a prosecutor denies you a due process right, it is a crime. In Ohio, it's called interfering with civil rights. It could also be tampering with evidence because you're withholding records in anticipation of a investigation or criminal proceedings, which is court proceedings. And there's also a federal statute, which is 244, 18 U.S. Code 241, 242, deprivations of right under color of law. Again, we have due process rights in this country, all right? So can't deny someone that due process right. You can't be unfair to a criminal defendant. So I informed the magistrate that it is a crime and this court has no jurisdiction to cover up a crime. And I asked for a hearing on the matter because you're entitled to a hearing when you allege sufficient facts before the court that, if proven true, would entitle you to relief. So this is what he said. Memorandum in opposition motion for order to show cause. And this is what he writes. He writes down, judgment in this case became final many years ago. Hobbs' repeated allegations of relief from judgment served no purpose beyond vehicles for personal attack on the undersigned and the Assistant Attorney General Jate. The court should stop this frivolous behavior by imposing substantial monetary sanctions under Federal Civil Procedure Rule 11 and requiring him to pursue in an effort setting aside judgment by an independent action by paying a filing fee. So we denied that. He will not look into the matter. He wants to try to sanction me. He won't let me prove my cause in court. And he wants me to pay a fine. So, you know, I'm hoping to expose this stuff because, you know, not only for my cause, but for everybody else that has to go before the court, that they have a fair and impartial proceeding. Okay? This has been going on for 10 years, on and off. I'm getting tired of this. I have 2 duffel bags full of paperwork from state court, from federal court, asking that a fair and impartial hearing be held on this matter. They have denied it. They will not look into it. They won't investigate my allegations. I have 10 court cases in state court. I had 2 cases in federal court, which is the federal habeas, which is the one that I just cited there. And I have a federal civil rights matter that was pending in the court for 3 years. They denied that civil rights lawsuit. It was Hobbs versus Faulkner. Like I said, that was 3 years. That went on for a very long time before they dismissed it. I mean, they did conclude that your civil rights were violated, but you have no cause of action because your underlying conviction has not been vacated to have standing in court for a Section 1983. But again, I just want to shed problem on this matter that this judge is lying. His name is Magistrate Michael Merz. He is lying on all these matters. Okay. I'm entitled to this record. This is not my fault for filing it too late. Okay. The prosecutor had an affirmative duty to tell my attorney at the time of my plea deal that he had a host of evidence that he was supposed to hand over to me. And he did not. And while I was sitting in prison, this same prosecutor never informed the judge of all this evidence suppression. But yet he fought to keep me in prison. Okay? That's unfair. I mean, that's unfair. That's unethical. And I also want to mention that lack of accountability breeds corruption. So what do I mean by that? So it means that I actually filed a bar complaint against the prosecutor on this matter. They came back and said that the prosecutor should not be hiding anything against you. Did they look into the matter? No, they did not look into the matter. And then they dismissed it. I filed several complaints against this judge, Michael Merz, a federal magistrate judge. They didn't look into anything. I filed three motions to recuse the judge. He won't read anything that I file. He just reads what he wants to read. And then he'll enter an order saying he's not cited any bias or anything. Well, acting as a defendant and arguing on behalf of the Ohio Attorney General is bias. So, again, they won't read anything. So when he denies it, it usually goes up to review to a district judge, which can, reject it or modify it. So everything that I cite, he just rubber stamps the findings of the magistrate. Whatever the magistrate says, he rubber stamps it. Okay. I mean, none of this is fair. I should be able to go down to the prosecutor's office, ask for the records, get them, present them to court. Instead, I'm sitting here 10 years later and nobody cares. They don't care about your constitutional rights. They don't care. They only care about themselves and what they can do to you. And they could do a lot of harm to you because right now I have people reaching out to me, Facebook Messenger, you're a pedophile, Well, anyone that wants to comment on my video, okay, you go through this, okay? You go through this. Go what I went through, okay? And tell me that this is fair, okay? Because you're going to be down at the bottom of the barrel and there's nothing that you can do because nobody will look into anything, okay? They will do nothing to you, okay? To help you out or, do what's fair. This is a rigged system. Okay, this has to deal about when you have discovery in a case, you don't have open file discovery. Instead, you have to second guess what the prosecutor has. And imagine all the harm that can happen to that. Like if you're facing the death penalty and this prosecutor wants to play unfair and they want to hide evidence, they will do it. They will never tell you. There's only 2 states in this country that has open file discovery, but yet the other 48 does not. You have to second guess what they have, and that is fundamentally unfair. That gives them an advantage. Okay, and bar complaints ain't gonna get you nowhere. It's not gonna do you any good. They're not gonna do anything. And I'll tell you this for a fact: if you make a public records request and you asked the bar commission for all the complaints lodged against someone, guess what? It's all hidden. They're not gonna give it to you. It's hidden from the public. What else do I want to say? So, yeah, I mean, I'm sitting in my car and I'm doing this video. I'm tired. I've been filing for 10 years. It's put an enormous strain on me. And, you know, I'm really disgusted. I am absolutely disgusted that this can happen in our system. Okay? And as far as people telling me, well, go to your attorney should know about this. He played a role in this, actually. I mean, before I entered my plea, he was, you know, basically stressing me to take a plea to when I told him I didn't want to. Telling me what was going to happen at trial. And I mean, I don't understand how someone can pressure you like that and make promises and stuff like that. But when I went in for the colloquy, the judge never asked me if my attorney made predictions and stuff like that, because he made predictions and, you know, I don't understand about that. And why the attorney did not argue in court why this guy is maintaining his innocence outside of court. I mean, I still don't understand why he wouldn't tell the judge that. Because when I entered my plea, I was afraid. I mean, I was a shy person at the time. I never talked to anybody. And I wish I would have opened my mouth in court and told the judge, you know, I felt like I was pressured. And, you know, going forward now, you know, even, you know, when I was in prison and explaining to the judge that I felt like I was pressured, he didn't care. Judge doesn't care. But anyways, I did go back to state court after I made my public records because I put a lengthy affidavit into court citing all the evidence the prosecutor hid, and the judge said, we're not going to look into it. It's denied. And then I appealed it, and I asked for a hearing. When I appealed it, they said it's without merit. Denied. Again, I'm in the 12th District. The 12th District Court of Appeals is a very corrupt court in Ohio. They only grant hearings for people that they like. If they don't like you, especially for sex offenses, they won't look into matters. If I had a drug offense, they would probably look into it. Again, I have all the paperwork to prove what I'm saying. And, you know, I am very, very upset. I'm very upset for me. I'm very upset for anyone else that has to go before the court and thinking that they're going to have a fair and impartial. They're not. Okay, you're not. Everything's going to be imputed upon you. You filed too late or whatever, and you didn't cite a motion, you didn't you didn't plead a cause with fraud and stuff like that, with particularity, they'll dismiss it. But again, this latest motion I filed, it was a very lengthy motion. I cited everything with fraud, the time, the date, the specific document withheld. I even put some of the documents into the record to show that the prosecutor hid it. They won't look into it. They're not going to treat you seriously at all. So this needs to be exposed. And I'm hoping that other people, you know, will get the courage to also produce their other videos, you know, their videos and showing court corruption. And we start, you know, getting this involved. And yeah, I mean, this can do you a lot of harm, okay? This can harm you to the point of wanting to commit suicide, you know, because it will take you down a rabbit hole if you let it. And thank God that I did not let it get me down to that point. You know, I don't let it bother me anymore, but it really did. Because like I said, I had people reaching out to me, you know, girlfriends and stuff like that. They're going to reject you. Everybody's going to reject you. Your court, you know, going to church, your family, your friends. Okay? Even they're going to make you get at your lowest point. This isn't fair to me. This isn't fair to anyone else. It's like you're playing a game of chess or you're playing a game of cards and someone's got the deck stacked in their favor the whole time and everybody else knows about it, okay? And you got a lot at stake right there, and you lose, and it's like everybody else that took part of this, you'll understand about it. You'll understand it was all rigged, and everybody that knew about it, they won't be your friends no more. So, as far as the ethics, I've written a letter to the prosecutor telling him this is unfair. If you know it's unfair, it's disgusting. They don't care. Okay? You won't get a letter back. If you do get a letter back, they'll say, I complied with everything. They'll lie. They'll lie until the last part, until they're exposed. But anyways, this is my story. Again, I do have 10 court cases in state court that I have filed, and every one of them, they have denied it. They have denied a hearing. They denied discovery. So I've done everything on my part, filed bar complaints. I mean, I've done everything possible. They will not look into the matter. I contacted the governor, the Ohio Attorney General, who actually represented the state of Ohio. They won't look into anything. I filed a criminal complaint. It was assigned over to the Ohio Attorney General. They did not look into anything. So this is all but a game, okay? At the end of the day, it's all but a game. And I wish I would have known at the time of my plea what this prosecutor did, because then I would have had standing to fight it at that point in time. I would have had witnesses, and yeah. So anyways, I don't know what to say. I'm still a little mad about this. It gets to me from time to time. And I really hope someday that, justice will be done.